The moment Marcus Chen looked up from his laptop at the Monday morning debrief, saw the woman standing next to me in the doorway, and said, quietly, with the specific energy of a man whose weekend had just arrived uninvited at his office, "You've got to be kidding." I understood that the universe had a particular sense of structure that I had not been consulted on. The woman next to me went still, not outwardly, just in the way she had of pulling herself very slightly inward when something surprised her. A half-second of recalibration so small you could miss it if you weren't paying attention. I was paying attention. I had been paying attention since Friday evening. That was part of the problem. My name is James Okafor. I'm 36. I write technical documentation, software manuals, compliance guides, the kind of precise, patient language that most people never read and that falls apart completely if you get it wrong. I work for a mid-sized consultancy in Clerkenwell. I have been there 4 years. My boss for 3 of those 4 years has been Marcus Chen, who is exacting, fair, occasionally funny in the way of someone who does not try to be, and who I have never once, in all that time, seen look anything other than composed. He was not composed on Monday morning. His expression lasted approximately 2 seconds before he replaced it with something more managerial. But I had seen it. The woman next to me had seen it, and the 3 of us stood in that doorway for a moment that lasted considerably longer than its actual duration before Marcus said, "Ellie, what are you doing here?" She said, "Joel set me up with your technical writer." Marcus looked at me. I said nothing. There was nothing available to say. "Of course he did," Marcus said, and closed his laptop. I should explain Joel. Joel Chen had been my closest friend for 8 years, since we had been placed in the same terrible shared house during a year of freelance chaos in our late 20s, and had discovered we had identical taste in bad action films and good coffee, and the specific kind of friendship that does not require you to perform being fine. He was Marcus's younger brother. I knew this. I had always known this. What Joel had neglected to mention across 8 years of friendship, and what I had assumed was reasonable transparency, was that his sister existed. Her name was Ellie. She was 33. She was a structural engineer who worked for a firm in Southwark and spent her working hours deciding whether things would hold. She had close-cropped natural hair. A scar above her left eyebrow from a climbing fall she described in exactly 2 sentences, without drama or embellishment, and the particular quality of a person who had thought carefully about most things and expected the same from the people she talked to. Joel had texted me on a Thursday evening with 3 words. "Trust me, Friday." This was, historically, the kind of message I should have interrogated more thoroughly. Instead, I had said yes, because Joel had earned a degree of unconditional credit, and because I had nothing else happening on Friday, and because something in the brevity of the message had felt like it meant something. He had not mentioned Marcus. He had not mentioned that his sister and his brother both existed in my life simultaneously, intersecting at me in a way that suggested the arrangement had been constructed rather than coincidental. Joel, as I was coming to understand, had been quietly engineering something and had seen no reason to flag the blueprints. We had dinner at a small Italian place near London Bridge that Joel had booked and then conspicuously not attended, citing a work emergency that I did not believe for a second. Ellie had arrived exactly on time, looked at the empty 3rd chair with an expression of resigned amusement, and said, "He's not coming, is he?" It was not a question. "No," I said. "He did this to me with the last one too," she said. "He sets me up and then removes himself so I can't use him as an escape route." She sat down. "It's actually quite sophisticated for Joel." "He's less transparent than he appears," I said. He's exactly as transparent as he appears, she said. He just relies on you not looking directly at it. She picked up the menu. I'm Ellie. You're James. You write things for a living, and you once helped Joel move a sofa at midnight for reasons he's never fully explained. The sofa story is complicated. I've been told. She looked over the menu at me. He says you're the most careful person he knows. He meant it as a compliment. He did phrase it as a compliment. How did he phrase it? He said you were the kind of person who reads the last page of an instruction manual first. She set the menu down. He seemed to think that would land well with me. Does it? She considered. Provisionally, she said, and she looked at me with the particular attention of a person deciding whether a structure was going to hold, and I felt, in a way I was not prepared for, that I very much wanted to pass that assessment. We talked for 3 hours. The restaurant filled up around us, and we didn't notice. She had opinions about the specific failures of urban drainage systems that she made genuinely interesting. I had opinions about the way language creates liability that she pushed back on until I had refined them into something better. We argued about whether precision was a form of care or a form of control. She said both. I said it depended entirely on who was applying it, and by the time we reached something like agreement, the table next to us was on its second set of diners. She ordered the same coffee twice, and I didn't mention it. She had a paperback in her bag that she'd bent the spine of completely out of shape, and she caught me looking at it and said, "It's a good book." I read it fast, the first time, and I'm reading it slower now. She didn't offer the title. I didn't ask. Some things felt like information that would arrive at the right time. When we left, she stood on the pavement in the November cold and said, "Joel's going to ask how it went." "What are you going to tell him?" "That he should have come." She looked at me steadily. "What are you going to tell him?" "The same," I said, with a follow-up question about whether you'd want to do this again, without Joel setting the coordinates. She looked at me for a moment. One beat past the point where it could have been casual, and then she said, "Tuesday. I'll send you somewhere." She sent me the name of a place on Sunday evening. Just the name, no other text. Which I understood to mean the conversation was already continuous. I did not overthink this. I did think about it, at intervals, for the rest of the weekend. Which brings me back to Monday morning. I had arrived at the office 11 minutes early, which was unusual, and had been crossing the open-plan floor to my desk when I heard my name from the direction of reception. I turned. Ellie Chen was standing at the front desk with a coffee carrier and an expression I hadn't seen on her yet, slightly less composed than her default, a fraction unguarded, which on her was the equivalent of someone else looking completely unmoored. "I had a client meeting that moved," she said. "I was around the corner." I thought. She held up the coffee carrier in a way that completed the sentence without finishing it. "I'm glad you did," I said. She handed me a coffee, and the two of us walked toward the debrief room, because that was the direction I'd been heading, and she fell naturally into step, and neither of us noted this. And I opened the door, and Marcus looked up. The silence after he said, "You've got to be kidding," was the kind that reorganizes a room. Ellie recovered first. She was better at that than me, faster to find her footing in unexpected terrain. She said, "Hello, Marcus," in the tone of a person who had grown up with this man and had a full inventory of his tells. Marcus said, "You're the blind date." "James is the blind date," she said. "I'm just someone who brought coffee." Marcus looked at me with the expression of a man processing information he had not requested and was not sure he wanted. "Joel," he said, and it was not a question. "Joel," I confirmed. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "He didn't tell you." "He told me almost nothing," I said. "He never does." Marcus exhaled. He looked at his sister. He looked at me. Something moved across his face that I couldn't categorize precisely. Not disapproval, not exactly. Something more like the recalculation of a person who has just been handed a variable he hadn't included in his model. "This is going to be complicated," he said. "It doesn't have to be," Ellie said. "You've had 2 dates," Marcus said. 1.5, she said. "The Tuesday one is tonight." Marcus picked up his coffee and looked at me for a long moment with the particular attention of someone who signs off on my work every fortnight and was now applying the same level of scrutiny to an entirely different document. I did not look away. After a moment he said, "You're going to want to be very straightforward about this. Both of you." "Yes," I said. He nodded. He opened his laptop. He said, "I need the compliance annex by Thursday," and the conversation was over. Except for the small, almost not there thing at the corner of his mouth that might, on anyone else, have been the beginning of a smile. In the hallway afterward, Ellie said, "That went better than it could have." "He's going to call Joel," I said. "Immediately," she said. "Joel is going to send you a voice note pretending he had no idea this was a possibility." Should I believe the voice note? She considered this with the seriousness it deserved. "No," she said. "Joel has known Marcus's schedule for 30 years. He knew about the Monday debrief." She looked at me. "He also knows I never bring coffee anywhere without a reason." That landed somewhere specific. I stood with it for a moment. "So the Thursday client meeting that moved," I said. She looked at me steadily. "I had a Thursday client meeting," she said. "It moved to Wednesday." I do not have reliable instincts in situations where the variables are this well arranged, so I stayed quiet and let the arithmetic do what it needed to do. "I should go," she said. "I have an actual building to assess." "Tonight," I said. "Tonight," she said. And she looked at me once more with that structural attention, the look that was deciding whether something would hold, and whatever she concluded I was not told directly, but she was already texting before she reached the lift and my phone lit up 11 seconds later with an address and a time. The voice note from Joel arrived at 11:15. It was 40 seconds of him explaining, with extremely poor conviction, that he genuinely had not anticipated any of this, and that the whole thing was a coincidence, and he hoped I wasn't uncomfortable. I listened to it twice. I sent back, "You knew about the debrief." He replied, after a pause, "You're welcome." This is the thing about Joel. He is exactly as transparent as his sister said. He just relies on you not looking directly at it, and most of the time you don't. Because most of the time, the view in the other direction is better. He had looked at 2 people he knew in the particular way you know people across years and difficult seasons, and he had seen something they had each been too sensible to look for on their own, and he had put them in the same room and removed himself and waited. It was, as Ellie said, actually quite sophisticated. We had dinner on Tuesday. We did not discuss Marcus. We discussed load-bearing walls, which Ellie was able to make into a metaphor without announcing that she was doing so, and the specific dishonesty of passive voice in technical language, which I had opinions about, and she pushed back until I had refined them, which had become, I was noticing, the shape of how we talked. She had the book with her again. She'd finished the second reading. She held it out across the table without preamble and said, "I think you'd find it interesting." For the language, specifically, I took it. I understood what the gesture meant. She had carried it to 2 dinners and had now given it to me, which was either the action of a person who had finished with it or the action of a person who had manufactured a reason for it to change hands. I thought about the building manual on Miriam's shelf. I thought about reasons people find to keep things. I kept the book. Months later, Marcus stopped making the expression he had made in the doorway and started making a different one. something quieter, more settled. The look of a man who had accommodated a new variable and found it did not, on balance, unbalance anything he cared about. He was professional about it at work, which I respected. He was occasionally pointed about it at family dinners, which Ellie handled, which I was learning she handled everything. Not by deflecting, but by meeting it directly and not giving it more weight than it was due. Joel attended the Christmas dinner that year with the specific energy of a man who has pulled off something he is very proud of and is exercising enormous restraint about mentioning it. He lasted until the cheese course. "I just want to note," he said, "that I did this." "We know you did this," Ellie said. "I'm not asking for credit," he said. "I'm just noting it. For the record." "The record notes it," Marcus said. "Move on." Joel looked at me. I said nothing. He grinned the grin of a person who is on the right side of history and knows it. 2 years on, when people ask how it started, I tell them the version with the coffee carrier and the doorway and Marcus's expression, because it's the version with the best moment in it. Ellie tells the version with Joel's 3-word text message, because she says the whole thing was decided there, and everything else was just the working. Marcus, when asked, says he had a feeling from the beginning, but was professionally obliged to say nothing, which is almost certainly not true, and which no one challenges, because he says it with such conviction. What I know is that nothing was accidental. Every part of it was arranged by someone who had paid close enough attention to see what neither of us was looking at directly, and had the particular kind of friendship that allows you to hand someone something they didn't know they needed, and then step back and let them figure out what it is. Joel did that, badly disguised, impeccably timed, completely correct. I have updated my policy on 3-word texts from him accordingly.